This video is about Shadowbyte, a security researcher in Malectrica who has recently found 2 zero-day vulnerabilities affecting thousands of websites, including those of government departments. The main vulnerabilities in this video are classed as template literal injection and, even more interestingly, HTTP response splitting. The primary impact of each was client-side JavaScript execution, i.e. XSS. This can of course be leveraged for drive-by malware downloads, credential theft, browser hooking, and much more. Our story begins with a humble motorbike store, Sydney City Motorcycles. Shadowbyte entered a canary into the site's search bar and began looking for reflection points. One in particular caught his eye. His canary string was reflected inside a script tag between 2 backticks. In JavaScript, these are used for template literals, which are similar to format strings in a language like Python. They allow you to insert an expression, and the value returned will be output in the string. When they are directly user-controlled, this can result in code execution. Shadowbyte entered the payload you see on screen with a $sign in curly braces, signifying a template literal expression, or the code to execute. Sure enough, the dialog fired. Continuing his audit, he found the path _cpanel. The banner at the top made his hair stand on end. It read, "Neto is now part of MITRE Commerce Cloud." He wanted to confirm that this is indeed an issue with Neto as a whole and not just this one store, but Neto subscriptions are expensive, and we would have had to operate under the assumption we will not be reimbursed for our work. So he opened builtwith.com, searched for Neto, and began making his way down the list. enurse.com.au, vulnerable. aussiebatteries.com.au, vulnerable. livingelements.com.au, vulnerable. The list goes on. Now, understanding the scale of his findings, Shadowbyte decided to keep digging. Seeing as how he already had one XSS, he figured there would likely be more and tried a basic path reflection attack, where the URL path is reflected, unescaped, into HTML content, leading to XSS. And this did not immediately fire, although the payload was indeed reflected in the response. It turns out the path was reflected in the header section, specifically in the cookies, likely for tracking purposes. This doesn't, however, mean the attack isn't viable. By inserting a line break, we manipulate the response the server creates, such that our payload falls into the body section and is executed on the client that receives it. Furthermore, due to an atypical reflection point, we are able to modify response headers arbitrarily. This vulnerability is called HTTP response splitting, and generally opens up a variety of attacks, manipulating cross-origin resource sharing headers to enable cross-site leaks, etc. For many such attacks, however, the injected content would need to contain a URL, for example, https://evil.com. We were unable to achieve this in the context of Neto due to double slashes being escaped. We tried several bypass methods, unfortunately none were successful. Regardless, we were able to leverage it as another XSS vector. Shadowbyte then reported both of these issues, and as it goes, Neto never responded. After several months of inaction and a lack of communication with us completely, they eventually issued a patch to the template literal injection by switching to use of a string. Our input is still never escaped, so we simply use the payload you see on screen to break out of the string. And the use of the minus symbol here causes the function to be evaluated and executed, and this was just one of many methods we could have employed. After another few days or so, Neto realized their mistake and issued another patch, this time correctly escaping the responsible parameter. As for the HTTP response splitting, the only mitigation they've added so far is stricter web app firewall rules. This might make exploitation harder, but is in no way a solution. If Neto had simply responded to our messages, they would have been aware of the cause of these vulnerabilities and indeed how to mitigate them. And with that, our organization goes back to hunting. We've got some pretty big stuff in the works, so stay tuned, stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time.